Termites. It's night 75. That means we've been doing this for 325 batches of nights. So it's like our, what is that, 50-year anniversary is something, 75-year anniversary, I don't know. I have my Lou Brock favorite little Nanette sweatshirt on. What are we drinking? Well, look, some Devil's River bourbon whiskey. From where? Dallas, Texas. I work a lot in Texas. I like every city for a different reason. But I must say, Neat Fuzz in Houston, if you ever want the greatest Mexican, and Matt's El Rancho in Austin. That'd be my two recommendations. San Antonio doesn't get enough good press either. Great town. Love it. If it wasn't so hot, and I was young, just young-er, I'd consider living there. Really like it. Okay, we're on chapter 42 with Tanya. Oh, by the way, termites, look what I got. I got it. I don't think we should read it, though, because it's not even political. This book is not, it's just about psychiatry and its family dynamics, but it's pretty depressing and serious. So think of somebody else you might, I'm voting no on this, editor's executive decision, but if you're interested in how family dynamics, very interesting. And it explains his alcoholic brother, the one I used to have a bit about my act, not about the alcoholism is funny, but about the family dynamics of that. Loretta Lynn, we don't have to stick with country music. It could be Roseanne Barr's life, if she has a book. I just like biographies, and I like it of interesting people or weird people not of the road more traveled. I prefer people of the road more awkwardly traveled. So think about it, send comments. I love to read them. I like to read them with a drink out on the porch at sunset when I feed the fox, which I'm not supposed to be feeding. I'm well aware of that. Thank you for the notes. Chapter 42. I was ready for Nashville by 1985, but Son of Nashville wasn't ready for me. Many people on Music Row thought I'd lost my fan base because of all the bad publicity about Glenn Campbell, and I'd never be able to get them back. Between me rocking around in bars right on Music Row and the experience with Arista, a lot of people in Nashville figured I was through. Well, you don't ever tell one of the Tuckers they're done. They'll tell you when they're done. That's how that works, bitches. All right? She'll have Daddy come kick your goddamn door down if need be. It's amazing to hear you're a has-been at the age of 24. That's how old she is at this point in this book. I don't know about you people, but I feel like she should be like 73. Rehab, people knocking her teeth out. I mean, you got to give her credit. But that was the buzz on the street. I shrugged it off. I figured I'd been there, has-been at 24. I'd rather be a has-been at 24 than at 44. I had a better shot at coming back. Well, that's some funky math right there, but alrighty. Dad was more afraid about my career than I was. I should have seen that I had some fences to mend and something to prove, especially when my dad couldn't seem to get anyone to believe I could, and more important, would still make hits. One reason I didn't take being without a record label more seriously was that I was back out on the road so heavily. I didn't tour much for a couple years after Glenn. You gotta get all that straightened out. But between 1983 and 1985, when I signed with Capitol, I was back out on the road a lot. It was crucial that I started bringing money in, because Daddy upgraded the ranch without telling anyone. There's that. And what's Daddy doing? Phew, I hate to point fingers, but come on. It's like every person that I have work, if I need a handyman, they always go, I don't want to shit on another man's work. And then they proceed to just tell me what a horrible job the person before him did. I didn't tour, I was back on the road. It was crucial. We'd gone several years with we'd, meaning everybody in the family. We'd gone several years with very little money coming in, and we were starting to feel a financial crush because her sister's didn't have any hits going on. I don't know if that money would have went into the family pot. Promoters usually shy away from booking artists with no new products on the airwaves, so in some ways I was lucky that the tabloids had kept my name out there. My name still sold tickets, even though it didn't command big prices I'd gone for in 1980. I went down from 25 grand a show to 10 or 15. That sounds like a lot of money till you start taking away the things it has to pay for. That's right, Tanya. I'm right there with you. You got a lot of people to pay. Got to pay the booking agency, bus rental, band, and crew salaries. Well, I don't have any of that. And the daily expenses of the road. Well, that could be dwindled down to Taco Bell, $5. I could eat Taco Bell for lunch and dinner and only spend $5. I'm not even kidding. 2 tacos and Diet Coke. Once again, wow, it's got some kick to it. Once again, my dad hit the streets to tell producers and label heads about his daughter. Unfortunately, the ones he spoke with thought they knew everything they needed to know about Tanya Tucker. Even Billy Sherrill passed. Remember his name from before? Completely frustrated with trying to find me a recording home, Dad phoned Jerry Crutchfield and set up a meeting with Jerry. Jerry's always treated my dad with complete respect. The two liked and trusted each other, so they were completely honest and upfront about the hole they believed I'd dug for myself. Well, yeah, you did. But I like that she admits it. Dad told Jerry he was afraid I'd lost all credibility on Music Row, and the label heads wouldn't even talk to him about me. Jerry said he didn't have any doubts that we could all make hit records again, and he believed, as far as I did, that my fans hadn't turned their backs on me at all. But he knew getting me a record deal wasn't going to be that easy, and he and Dad even talked about starting their own label if worst came to worst. Well, then, how are we going to do that? Whose money are we using? Are we going to sell Double T Ranch? Or is this guy going to... First place Jerry went to was Polygram. While they did agree to let him cut a record on me, they offered only about half of what he needed as a recording budget, so he went to see Jim Fogelsong, who headed Capitol Records in Nashville. Jim didn't tell him who he was pitching for. Jerry didn't tell him who he was pitching for at first. He sat down and said he had a young woman who was one of the most exciting acts he'd ever seen, a torch singer, if you will. And she had the talent to make hit records and make every label proud, not to mention a lot of money. Jim raised his eyebrows and said, "Well, this young lady must be something. What's her name?" "Tanya Tucker," Jerry said. Jim did not jump for joy. He'd heard about my lifestyle, and he'd been told I was unreliable. Jim said he'd think about it, and the two men spoke various times over the next several weeks. One day, Jim seemed like he was ready to sign, the next day not. My dad kept trying to find what was going on, and the news that Jim was waffling scared him. But Jerry had a plan. "Now, Bo, don't you let this get you down yet," Jerry said in that slow, laid-back way he had. "Jim is going to Los Angeles, and I bought a ticket too. He won't be able to get away from me. I'll have 6 hours to change his mind." Well, I'm sure Jim will appreciate that. Once the two got settled on the plane, Jerry... And how did you just figure out where he was sitting? How do you do that? How do you stalk somebody on a plane unless you actually know their seat number? It's pretty creative, however that was done. Once the two got settled on the plane, Jerry started a sales pitch. He told Jim he didn't see why artists should fit into stereotypical molds, and that my having a wilder image than most of the women in the business didn't affect my ability to make good records. For my misbehaving, he explained, I was like a colt, a little too frisky at times. That killed me. Pretty damn frisky is more like it. He reminded Jim that I was still younger than many of his female acts, and that I had a very contemporary sound. "She's a blue chipper," Jerry finished. "I believe you're right," Jim said. "You go make a hit record." At the time, I was playing a 3-week gig with Ray Stevens at the Desert Inn in Las Vegas. Do we all remember Ray Stevens? Oh, yes, they call him the Streak. Woo! And he ain't wearing any clothes. That's all I remember Ray Stevens was saying. I know that he had a lot of hits. And I think he has a theater in Nashville, the Ray Stevens something, probably Streaking Theater. I was happy not in the news, but not relieved like my dad. I figured there was a deal floating around out there somewhere. When I got back, I met with Jim and signed the contract. Such as it was, I signed a 1-album contract with not a penny up front money. Dad was thrilled to get that. Now it was up to Crutch and me, Jerry Crutchfield, to make that record that could put me back on the charts. I still wasn't scared, though. Only after we had the first hit on Capitol did I realize how close I'd come to blowing it. The other thing I wasn't ready to do was settle down. My poor dad. He spent the first half of my career trying to get management under control, and now he's going to have to try to do the same with me. He gave me the heart-to-heart lecture after I got the deal with Capitol. He told me about all the record labels and producers who wouldn't even take his calls. He told me about Billy Sherrill turning me down. He told me Capitol Records was my last shot, and if I blew it, everything we had could be gone. Daddy, why don't you go get a job? That's what I'm saying. This girl's 24. She don't need this kind of pressure. We know, Tanya. The only way a star can still stand and is the star is if they're rich. He told me Eddie Arnold will always be a superstar whether he has an album or not because he's rich. You aren't rich, and you've been standing still so long. Those record people are trying to bury you. I promised him nobody's going to bury me. First thing I told Jerry was that I wanted to play a major role in song selection. I'd said that to producers before, but this time I felt like I had a better handle on the material Nashville had to offer. I'd told him I'd spent the past couple years hanging out with writers, going to songwriter nights, and I really wanted to play a role in what we recorded. After I wrote and recorded Changes, I knew what it felt like to sing my own song, and I wanted to find songs that sounded so much like me that I would have written them for me if I'd have had the chance. Well, I wanted to look for songs where people would know more about me after they listened to the song than they knew before. I want to take responsibility, Tanya. I want you to take responsibility, Tanya, he said. Your input is crucial if we're going to make the kind of album we need to bring you back. Well then, I smiled, let's go out there and find them. I love Jerry Crutchfield because he listens to me and respects my opinion. As I'd learned, many producers that have their own agenda and don't want to pay attention to what the artist wants, but Jerry listened. And the first two songs ended up on the album was Just Another Love, written by Paul Davis, and One Love at a Time by Paul Davis and Paul Overstreet. Okay, I don't know those songs. I'll have to giggle them